According to government statistics, gender-based violence remains a serious issue in Zambia, with nearly 36% of women aged 15 to 49 having experienced physical violence. Furthermore, about 29% of girls are married by the age of 18, and more than 30% become mothers while still in their teens. These are some of the statistics that underscore the urgent need for comprehensive action to address gender inequality. There is a stronger effort as of last year in 2023 through Zambian government initiatives on gender policy and equality to address the pressing issues of education for girls, women empowerment, child marriages, and even abuse of girls and women for just being girls and women. So far, a major milestone is that the Law of Marriage Act now ensures minimum age of marriage of 18 for both customary and statutory marriages. This, of course, alleviating the amount of childhood young girls' marriages. Let us hear from two women, an expert on this topic and a victim of gender-based violence and inequality. Thank you so much for joining me on this sensitive topic, Ms. Mutale and Ms. Faith, on the issue of gender-based violence, gender issues. As both of you may already know, that last year, 2023, a new government initiative under the current government had come about where there will be more emphasis and focus on gender equality. And already a statutory and customary age for marriage for girls now is set at age 18 and not younger. Otherwise, it's considered against the law. So Ms. Mutale, let's start with you. I understand you have years of experience on this area of gender equality, gender-based violence, and pretty much your entire life work had been based on this topic. Why don't you give us a brief summary of what that journey of your work was like or is?
The journey starts when I'm growing up, and you want to do certain things, including climbing trees, and you are told you can't do it. If you are in a co-education, if you beat the boys in class, it's an issue. So I started wondering, was there something wrong with the female gender? And fast forward, I get into university. I get an interest when I was doing the African family, and that spurred me on to say, I needed to understand more what is it about women that we should have a lot of taboos, because even in the home you are told wake up at 5 a.m., wake up, start sweeping, but the boys are still sleeping and you are wondering are we not in the same house? So that's where the interest got me, and I got into the National Commission for Development and Planning then, which was our planning institution. We didn't have government machinery, but we had the equivalent in the political party that was ruling, which was the United National Independence Party, UNIP. So from time to time they would come, the Mama Kankasas, the Bet Chirungas, to ask for programs, the statistics, anything that they wanted to be backed up as they were doing their work. From then we started saying, no, there was something amiss. We can't have at a political level, you've got a member of Central Committee, but at government level, you don't have the equivalent. So with that, we started lobbying. That was, for us at National Commission for Development Planning, we were working with other government institutions in liaison with NGOs, faith-based organizations, and indeed even the donor community. So we formed a formidable force to start lobbying government that they should be an institution. Eventually we had an ad hoc desk, then we had a unit, then we had a department. From there we had a division at Cabinet Office. Next we had a ministry. And I think now we are back to a division at Cabinet Office. So indeed, the issues that were happening to the women, be at a young stage in marriage, Because when I started working, people would come and they would talk to you about the issues they are going through in their marriages, the issues they are going through with their spouses, the issues that they are going through in their workplace. So the interest has been from there, and up to now, it's something that I've got a passion for.
Yes. Very good. Thank you for sharing that. So you still continue that work in gender equality and gender issues even today as a consultant. What is some reoccurring topics and issues that come your way, like patterns?
The sad part of it is GBV is in the forefront. And GBV,
which is gender-based
gender-based violence. Yeah. But the emphasis sometimes you tend to hear more of the physical, but it's beyond that. We are talking about the mental, the emotional, the psychological aspect. For the mental one, some even end up in our mental institution, Chainama Hills. And then people say, oh, she's gone crazy, what happened to her? But it's because she's been suffering. Every time somebody says something to them, it's so hateful, they can't handle it, then they go into depression.
Emotional breakdown.
Yeah, emotional breakdown. Some have even died from depression because of the things that was going, what was happening to them. The majority of the people who suffer or whose impact of these development policies is negative, the majority are women. It's not the men. So we find that people will still talk about poverty. We still talk about girls dropping out of school, despite all the programs that are there, because in some cases we've not yet dealt with the root causes of how people perceive a girl child, how they perceive a female, and what they expect a female to be.
Okay, so Ms. Mutale, now that you're still doing consulting work in the same area that you're passionate about, which is gender issues and gender-based violence, what is some reoccurring specific topics that come your way by these women and girls that come for assistance to you?
It's unfortunate that what comes out on top of all these other gender issues is the question of gender-based violence, unfortunately for us in this country. Women still suffer. Though we are seeing the physical part of it, but there's a lot more. We are talking about economic violence, where women are deprived of what they need economically. We are talking about the mental torture of things that are said to them. So you find that some of them go into depression. But I know that people will say, but why are you talking about the women and all? Let me just preempt maybe something that I would have said later on. Right now, for this year only, reported cases, I repeat, reported cases. The second quarter, we had 9,318. And out of those, 7,226 were females, standing at 77% of the total cases. Then in the third quarter, we had 10,078 cases. And out of those, 6,839, standing at 82.7% were women. So if you are doing statistics and you want to take it to the nearest figure, it's 100%. It's the women who are suffering from GBV. So that stands out. Then the others follow. We talk about poverty. We talk about low representation in positions of decision making, and the others. So those start trailing behind. Education, despite the programs that we have. Because I'm pretty sure we still have situations where people still talk of marriage as being universal, where a young girl, the things that are said to her, you don't wake up early, you are going to make a bad wife. Oh, up to now, we haven't seen you around any boy. When are you? Your friends are getting married. So as a result, the girls sometimes, instead of prioritizing education, marriage becomes a priority. So we still see low figures of girls progressing or completing their education, because the majority start dropping off on the way because of the way we perceive girls and what we expect from them. Marriage becomes an ultimate as opposed to her finishing her education and setting herself up in her own right, then looking around for marriage. Because that's what the boys do. They achieve, then they start saying, oh yeah, where is the girl I'm supposed to settle down with? I hope we can get to that stage where even for us, education will be paramount. And once we are done, then we can start looking for where that rib, where I came from, the rib cage where I came from. Yeah.
Some of that education should also start from the home as well. Those statistics are astounding, but at the same time, not very surprising. Okay, so Faith, you have a similar passion, but in a different way, as an aspiring attorney who wants to focus on contributing to alleviating gender-based violence and gender equality. Tell us a little bit about why you're passionate about this topic.
My personal experiences as someone who was sexually abused by my own father fueled my passion to advocate for young girls, because my human rights were violated as a young girl. So I feel I can stand up and speak up for the girls who are also facing the similar situation that I was in, because I was at the orphanage and I could see little girls as young as 3 years. They were abused by their own fathers or people that were meant to protect them. Yes. So I feel I can stand up for them and also be a human rights activist for them. Yes.
Yeah. So that's, I'm sorry you had to go through that, but you really are a brave person to tell your story. And I understand that you compiled your entire experience and story into a book for the purposes of helping others improve. So it's very brave of you and very bold of you to share that. And this could possibly be your life work because you've gone through that path.
Yes.
So I don't want to have to, have you relive those experiences, but tell us about your book. When will it launch?
Okay. My book is a voice for the victims and also survivors of abuse, because I've seen there are other women who are suffering in silence because of shame and fear. So I feel I can bring up this book because they don't have to be ashamed of what they have gone through. Yeah, it's what defines them and the strength they have to face those challenges. And that's what my book is all about. They can come out of the situation being brave. They shouldn't stay in the pain for a very long time, because it's not really a good thing to be in pain. And my book, that's what my book talks about. It will be launched on the 13th December next week at Golden Peacock Hotel. Yes, time 18 hours.
As Mutale mentioned earlier, that when young women and girls go through gender-based violence, there is a stage that they go through that's depression. They feel completely beat down and ripped to pieces. I'm sure you've gone through that stage. Can you share with us, how did you pull yourself out of that? Did you utilize anything that was available through the government or social services? Or was it something within you that you had to pull out of yourself to maintain your strength and your sanity?
I think it's my ability to wanting to grow from it, and also the possibility, because I used to be inspired by these women, like female leaders.
So this is a question for both of you. How much, because when it comes to this topic, it's usually other women like yourselves who are involved in helping to bring about change with the support of the government, like now where they've increased effort in providing support to alleviate gender-based violence and and support gender equality. My question to both of you is, how can men themselves support this initiative? Or are they even able to? How effective, how effective can men be in helping to alleviate gender-based violence, not only policies, but to even support the change of societal viewpoints on women and girls, if that makes sense?
It does. You know, sometimes when we are talking about gender, we're talking about women's issues, it may come out like the men out there are against it's women versus men. But really, that's not what it is at all times. There are men out there who are very supportive. I've met men throughout my career who would come out and help to pop you up professionally. They are there to assist you. They are not there to abuse you. They will support you. They will encourage you to do certain things. They might even point out certain areas where you've got potential. We've got husbands who go out of their way to ensure that their wives succeed in their career. Like, for example, they'll come home and maybe she needs to write a paper. They'll take over the taking care of the kids to ensure that their wife is able to sit down on the desk and finish what they want to do. Even to support them maybe to go to school. Men have paid for women's education. There are even organizations right now which are men working with men in fighting gender-based violence, encouraging positive masculinity. It's not that when we talk about masculinity, it's always in the negative. There's actually positive masculinity. And they will talk about that and see how they can help the women to go forward. But I think talking about that, sometimes I also say, the women, we are the nurturers. What are we doing to our sons as we are bringing them up? What are we doing when that man is having problems with his wife? What is my position vis-a-vis my daughter-in-law? Because you find that instead of me even castigating my son, I would want to be on my son's side. Oh yeah, my son is still young. Let him play around. But why did he decide to get married if he's not yet mature enough to be responsible for being a married person? So I think sometimes we also need inspection as women, especially mothers. What values are we instilling in the young men as they are growing up? Because I don't think they just wake up one day and say, today I'm going to be a monster. It's something that has been inculcating in them as they are growing up, or they are observing something from somewhere. But in spite of all that, there are men who are really there to support the gender fight.
Usually men who abuse have either watched, as you said, their mothers being abused, or somehow have the mentality that this is okay to do, it's acceptable. And most people who are abused themselves become abusers, right? So Faith, let's briefly go back to you. Given that you experienced what you experienced, and congratulations that you came out of that, and you're thriving, and aspiring to go to law school, and you have a book that you've written, what would you say to little girls right now who may be going through this? And what was the biggest challenge for you in terms of speaking up when there are other people around? To not share that this has happened with you? Was it fear? Was it help us understand that? And what would you advise young girls out there now that could be watching? What can they do if such a thing is happening to them? What can they do?
I feel for me it's my passion for speaking up, because I used to tell people even around me, but they couldn't understand my situation. So I could move on to the next person just like that to tell them my problems, but they couldn't really understand. And that's how even the more I speak about it, the less the shame I have with myself. So I will just be speaking and telling people about what I'm going through. And I had thought maybe even other girls in their homes, it's a normal thing, they go through the same. Yeah, so I would advise them to stay strong and also um, accept their challenges and also overcome them. There will be time for them that they can come out in their yes.
And I can almost feel and sense just how difficult it is. A very person that's supposed to protect you and love you and keep you from all harm is a very person that's actually abusing you.
Yeah.
So how do you, as a child, how do you even, I can't even fathom that, but so you would advise the young girls to find someone perhaps that they're comfortable with.
Yes.
And instead of, sharing things in a roundabout way, to just be direct and say, hey, this is happening to me, I need help. It's that simple. I need help.
Yes.
And people will help you.
Yeah, but there are some people who are not willing to help you. They will just keep them to themselves. And that's what I've been through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Before we move on, some of the things that government has put in place might not be utilized because people don't have the information. Taking up from what she's saying, that where do you go? We've got YWCA, they've got safe houses. Government was intending to build, but I didn't follow it up to find out if they've built anything to shelter the young girls or young boys, because even young boys suffer. Married women, I know married women, some of them they know, but they are scared even to report cases to victim support unit, because that's the other place where somebody can go. There's even the unit under police service, child protection. The problem that is there, people think, especially for the married women, they feel that if I go, it's the end of the marriage. It's not always that it will end up in your marriage breaking. If anything, sometimes people will manage to change that person, because the first entry point is not to end the marriage, but to see where the problem is coming from and then give counsel to whoever is the perpetrator of that GBV. For the young ones, I think if it means maybe putting this child in boarding school so that they are away from that environment, they can be. But the entry point would have been the victim support unit, YWCA, I don't know the others who run safe houses, one-stop centers in hospitals. There are people like that who are counselors who can guide such a person where to go thereafter.
Are some of these resources that are available that you mentioned, are they limited? And what other additional resources are needed?
When you say are they limited, is it access or government provision? I think, Faith, I will leave the access part of it from experience, but I know that sometimes the access is limited because people are scared to say, how do I go there? Where do I start from? But people are there to help them. But in terms of resources, this problem is quite big. And right now, government embarked on a journey of building fast-track courts. But they are not maybe in the remote areas. So the people in the remote areas still have the problem of access. Government, I think government year in, year out, or is it government in, government out? As much as they'll put in so much, it will still be inadequate. The problem is quite big. And this is why at least government leaves leeway for other stakeholders to come in as players. And then we have institutions like YWCA, World Vision, Plan International, CAMFED, who start stepping in where there are some gaps and government cannot provide, cannot have adequate resources for that.
So-
But despite that, I wish government would pay more attention to this area.
So the assistance of regulatory processes to oversee that it's functioning okay, and as governments transition and new governments come in, that those efforts continue and that there's not a gap of assistance for such programs.
Yeah.
Okay. Faith, you wanted to say something?
For me, with my own experience, I've had an opportunity to stay in a shelter for the girls who are sexually abused. That is in Livingston. There are so many orphanages there. Like there is Lubasi Home, Lushomo Trust for the boys and also girls. Yeah, so the shelters are there for the vulnerable children. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Ms. Mutale, you mentioned earlier there are different phases to gender equality. Now, let's just talk about gender equality since we talked about gender-based violence. So in the home between the girls and the boys, as you mentioned, the girls are trained early, and this is universal in Africa, by the way. My grandmother used to come to us in the States and would wake me up at 5 in the morning, make tea. I'm like, Grandma, I have school, I need to sleep. Why do I have to get up? And I think the culture and the mindset for the young boys in the home and the young girls in the home, it really starts while we're young, from the parents, from the elderly within. Just briefly back to gender-based violence. There is a universal culture, at least even in Somalia, where I'm originally from, when there is a tiff or an issue, a challenge, or even abuse between a husband and a wife, the community gets involved. Like uncles are called, grandpa is called, and like this big circle is created, and the man is reprimanded. You know, this is unacceptable. You can't do this to our daughter or our sister. You know, don't let this happen again. And it usually works when people get involved in that way. How much of those efforts are actually happening in Zambia?
Oof.
First of all, before I go back to gender equality.
I think we in Zambia there are certain informal institutions that are there even within the families. We've got things like they go in between for negotiations when a man is marrying. Generally speaking, that person is supposed to remain a lifetime partner, so that if anything goes wrong within the marriage, the young man can go to this man and say, this is what's happening to me. Just like on the other side, the young girl is supposed to have all these people who are preparing her for marriage. One of the main character is supposed to remain a friend. Unfortunately, here in the urban areas, it's more commercial. The day I'm marrying off my daughter, that's when I started looking around. Who can come and prepare my daughter? And once the contract is over, that's it. Then she gets stuck if she's going through problems. But generally speaking, we still have families who come together, they sit, they listen to both sides, and where counsel is supposed to be given, it is given. Okay. Yeah.
So that is universally African. It kind of happens
so.
in all African countries, and it usually is effective. And the effectiveness comes from when you share, when you bring to the table what the issue is. And I think the harboring of the abuse, the shame, the fear that you're going to get abused more, kind of lets that linger. So sometimes as women, we have the responsibility for standing our ground, for speaking up, but with tactfulness and with class. You have to nip things in the bud. If you let things go, they'll see it as, she's weak. Let me do this. Because the mentality is, because she's a woman, I can do this. And sometimes many of these men are completely unaware of their own behavior.
Yes.
But when you hold a mirror in their face, then they self-reflect and then realize. So I wanted to share that. That was my recent experience.
You see, you are talking about the workplace. Most of the things start as very subtle comments.
Very subtle.
And sometimes you look and you say, no, maybe I'm making a big mountain out of a mole. Let it pass. But in letting it pass, it becomes a big thing.
It festers. It's to belittle you. It's to weaken you as a woman.
Yeah.
It's their masculinity superiority they feel so insecure that you're better than them, you shine better than them, so they have to find a way to tap you down. So men, stop it.
No, even as women, we need to start learning to stand up to such issues. But also sometimes why it happens so, because even at a place of work, so many of you could be suffering from it, but it's being done in certain places. For example, you are in a meeting, you're coming from a university, it's a big institution, but you are in a meeting where you are alone. So you feel so alone, you feel so closed up, you don't know, maybe you are the one who attracts, because that's the other problem. As women, anything that happens, it's me. There must be something wrong with me. So you are seated there, you are there. But I think if we start having a little bit of get together, a cup of tea, sharing how our work situations are going, then we'll learn to even speak up. Because you know that I'm not alone. Right. There's somebody else going through this, but it's also not me. The problem is with the person who perpetuates such things against women. So I don't know. I like Faith. You said she's a lawyer in the making, which means,
and I feel that's one of the reasons why I want to be an Anton. Yes, to stand up for myself and also be assertive for anyone that comes against me.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. So if you guys could advise something that's needed right now, considering the statistics that you shared and what you know of other people, especially young girls that suffer these gender-based violences, what is needed? What would you tell the current government? This is what we need. A lot. Everything and everything. However they can help.
It's a shopping list. We need the financial resources. And the unfortunate thing, again, with gender as we are moving forward, it's where we need to retrain and train, because there's a high movement. I'll give you an example. Victim support unit, most of the officers, once they go through, somehow they all get promoted. You find that, oh, they've gone there somewhere. So people might say, but even last year you were training. Why do you want another training? It's because there's so much movement of the people who are qualified. But I want to bring it home to society and the families. Please, if we could start changing the narrative. It's not okay for a woman to be beaten. No matter what she has done, you can talk to her. Beating won't put logic in her head. But if you are talking to her, you are giving her the logic of what you think she's done wrong. So conversation for me is very important, and that can only come if from the beginning all of us start looking at a woman as a human being who is a partner to a man.
Yeah. Well, the woman is a mother of you.
Yes.
The woman is a mother of you. So
no, but you are just my wife. Then when I look at you as a wife, that's the end. Men have got a way of putting us in compartments. Talk about his daughter, talk about his sister, talk about his mother, he will kill you. But talk about the wife? Oh no, she's just a human being. He can do whatever he wants to do.
It's such a sad reality.
Yeah.
Any parting last words that you would like to say on this topic?
No, I think she has said everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with her.
If you were to see changes in the next 5 years, what is one major change out of all the challenges that affect women and girls? What is one that sticks out with you that you want to see completely eradicated, or at least close to it?
After you.
Child-based violence, perhaps maybe for you because you experienced it.
Yeah.
So we're looking at like multifolded things, right? When it comes to gender-based violence. So there are young girls being abused in different ways. It's just sometimes people forget verbal abuse.
Yes.
Mental abuse also exists.
Yeah.
Violence also exists. And then the pushing of getting girls to marry sooner rather than later. Although now the law has changed, as I mentioned, girls have to be at least 18 before they can get married. This is, I think, something new as of last year, 2023. And then you have the gender-based inequality in the workplace, within the families. So it's kind of like multifaceted. It's not something that can be mended with one or two efforts. It's like stages of not only healing for the ones that are abused, but stages of changing mindsets, changing the culture of how, you know, both boys and girls not only see themselves or see the other as well. So it has to be a collective, communal, countrywide, and government effort.
Yes.
It can't be done by one. But every person has a power within themselves, like you, Faith. They can say, hey, I've gone through this, and I'm going to do something about it. I do not want other young girls to also go through this. And you, Ms. Mutale, you spent your professional years working with gender-based violence issues, and while you're supposed to be retiring probably by now, you're still consulting. You're not going to, you know, just sit back and not work anymore. You're still very vibrant and strong, and still very passionate about gender-based violence and gender inequality.
Yeah, as much as maybe we would say paid for, I would retire from that, but I think being in a society and still surrounded with other people who are still going through some of these effects, I only retire in my coffin.
I respect that. Is there a website or an email address that people can reach you on who are watching that may need your consulting advice on what to do, where to go, for anything that they may be going through as women?
You know what? I love when you've mentioned technology. That's the other thing. As women, we don't move with technology. But as you are saying, it would be nice to be out there and use the social media for positive things.
Thank you so much, Faith, for coming and being a part of this topic and discussion. You too, Ms. Mutale. I appreciate your presence.
Thank you for having me.
Shake hands.